I'm the CEO of the Nonprofit Plug. We are a for-profit firm that specializes in support for nonprofit organizations. Everything from formation and incorporation, starting your nonprofit, to accounting and bookkeeping, annual compliance, and getting you to the next level. Anything your nonprofit could need, I'm literally your nonprofit plug.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, I have a very special guest. For the OGs here that's been listening, you guys know that I hopped on a TV show this year, and actually at the time that we're recording it, it just aired about 2 weeks ago. And so I was reaching out to some of my favorite people that are on the show to reconnect, catch up with some of these people. And the lady that I'm going to bring on today, on day one, we got on stage together and we won our pods, which are our breakout sessions. And it was me, a lady out by the name of Amanda, and the lady I have on today. And we were all wearing our red shirts to let everyone know that we were in first place. And that was our crew. Day two, I ended up losing the red shirt. They got to keep it. They kept being cool. And then eventually I ended up catching back up. But long story short, met her on the show. Great person. Had to bring her on and, let you guys know about what she has going on. So Dr. Sharon, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to get to know you, to get to meet you, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Killer experience. So, what's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Sharon. I'm the CEO of the Nonprofit Plug. We are a for profit firm that specializes in support for nonprofit organizations. Everything from formation and incorporation, starting your nonprofit, to accounting and bookkeeping, annual compliance, grant writing, website development, board management and engagement, getting you funding, getting you to the next level. Anything your nonprofit could need, I'm literally your nonprofit plug.
All righty. And so, first question, take us back in a time machine before the doctor, before all the amazing things you had going on now. What was little Sharon like growing up? Were you always this entrepreneur, energetic, lively person, or did you, somewhere along the way find that? Like, how did your childhood help build you into the person you are today?
Oh, I definitely was always a little bit of a CEO since I was a little
Okay.
kid. I was the kid that talked way too much. I was the one coming up with business ideas always. I had lemonade stands. I had cookie bake offs. I remember creating like couch cushion forts in the house, and would say,
Mm-hmm.
"This is my hotel, and I'm the boss of the hotel, and you could come rent rooms from the hotel from the night at my fort."
Yeah.
So it definitely was always in me. I for sure always knew that I was going to be like a CEO or something of a company. I did not think it was going to be of my own company. That's the only thing I didn't know when I was little, but I definitely knew I was going to be in some sort of leadership role. I was the definitely that kid in group projects that took the lead, whether I wanted it
Mm-hmm.
or not. Delegated as best I could, made sure we got the school project done. So it was for sure always in me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I always say, like, so I wasn't a typical entrepreneur. I didn't have the lemonade stand. So kudos to you. It took me a while to find the entrepreneur thing, but once I did find it, I went all in, and it led me to where I am today. But so fast forward a little bit. I said you were in school, you're delegating these projects, you're taking charge, you have the hotels and you have the lemonade stands and everything. Um, Around high school and getting out of high school, what were your thoughts around there? Because a lot of times, like, we start
Yeah.
thinking about college, we start thinking about wanting to get into business. Like, what were your thoughts like as you were finishing high school? Because you had this entrepreneurial spirit from pretty early on. You already had that built into you and tapped into you. Um, so coming out of high school, what were your plans? Was it like, all right, let me start a business, let me go all in on this stuff? Was it let me go to college? Like, where did you go from there?
Good question. So by the time I had gotten to high school, the concept of entrepreneur wasn't really around. I don't even think I knew of the existence of that word. So by the time I got to high school, it was definitely like, you're going to graduate high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job. And that's the track I totally went on. I ended up graduating high school early. So I did high school in 3 years and immediately went to community college and finished additional coursework, and then transferred that to Oregon State University, where I got my bachelor's degree. And I had, when I was little, I knew what I wanted to do. When I got to high school, of course, that's when shit hits the fan, and then you're so confused with life. So I even went to college with an undecided degree, which for people who know me would think that that is the weirdest, wildest thing. The fact that I would have an undecided degree and not really know my path. So where I was smart is when I was in college, I took all my back core classes, all the like low level classes, and just knocked them all out. Whether for whatever degree I would have picked, I was like, if I go into science, let me at least do that back core. If I go into liberal arts, let me at least do that so that that way I can move around. I ended up having 13 declared different majors by my senior year of college. And
Sheesh, talk about a
finally,
high score.
and I did wild shit. Like I thought I was going to get a degree in like fermentation sciences. So I was taking classes on making maraschino cherries and how to make wine and beer. It was so fucking boring. So that like was, I knew that was not for me. But what was crazy is at Oregon State, in order to take the classes and explore other departments, you had to declare those majors. So I was like, well, shit. Then I'm going to play the system. So that's why I kept declaring different majors so I could figure out, different stuff that I liked. Ended up settling on health management and policy and community development, which makes sense for kind of what I do now. But went that path, graduated, got a job in a primary care clinic, decided to go to grad school, did the same degree in grad school, got my master's in health administration, worked at a hospital again, doing hospital management, and then ended up getting a internship, a fellowship with the VA health system for veterans. And I did that for a couple of years. It fucking sucked. It was horrible. And that's when I knew, and that's when I learned about like the term entrepreneur and business development. And I was like, oh yeah, this is like this 9 to 5 is not the life for me. I need
Mhm.
to be able to go partner, collaborate, to serve people how I think they should be served and how the community wants to actually be served. And that's kind of how I got into like the nonprofit stuff.
Yeah. So really quick, before we get into the nonprofit stuff, um, I noticed how when you were a kid, you mentioned a lot about entrepreneurship, lemonade stands, hotels, right? And then once you started talking about college, you didn't mention anything about business at all. So like, were you at all like, did you have side hustles? Were you doing like tutoring or mentoring or hair
I
or
was.
nails, whatever you were? You
Yeah,
were
I
like,
for
what was it like in like, navigating in college? Because I remember there was a. So I went to University of Connecticut before I dropped out and I got into entrepreneurship. And I remember there's one barber on campus who was just tapped in. Everyone knew him. So it was like, I think he was charging like $20 a cut.
oh, he was
And like when you do the math, a cut maybe cut like it was 30 minutes because we weren't doing like crazy designs back then. But it's just like making like $40 an hour and college money. That's like equivalent of making 200 a day almost.
right.
You do four haircuts right there, make $120, and then yeah, the rest of the day to do whatever you want, and all that money can go towards paying for food. There's so many times where I had to ask for friends to give me their food swipe card when I was in school, just so I can get some extra. Go to the cafeteria a couple extra times because working out in college, I'm still growing. I used to get
Yeah.
hungry all the time. So but yeah. So what was it like? Managing side hustles while you were in college?
So I did take like classes on business development, still
Hmm.
not knowing the term entrepreneurship, but I was
Yeah.
taking business development classes. So the all the side stuff I did, I ran a flower nursery for a little while and was selling
Okay.
flowers. I think
Okay.
that's where I really learned how to sell because even though people come to like a flower nursery, you don't really have to convince them to buy flowers, but I would try to upsell them like buy this soil, buy this already pre-made flower pot. Oh, well, maybe you should get that tree instead of that tree, or like
Hmm.
how you could pair different plants together. And I think that's really where like I was able to use that entrepreneurial, innovative side of life that I really wasn't quite aware of yet. Um, I also, well, I did tutoring for sure. I
Hmm.
got paid to tutor because I was able to, people, this in high school too, people loved when I would do their homework for them. So that was a good hustle,
Yeah, done for you work has always been a very profitable, very high in demand business. Whether it's
which is
doing
literally what
someone's
I'm paid to
homework,
do
yeah,
now. I do
yeah.
done for you businesses all day long, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and so all right. So fast forward, the entrepreneur still alive in college while you were still figuring out everything. And I think another thing too, kudos. to you for giving yourself the grace to figure things out? I think a lot of times it can be very easy because colleges, as you said, try to pigeonhole you into declaring a major, and once you get to sophomore year, like the closer and closer you get to the end of that sophomore year, I remember back before I dropped out, like they were kind of like, all right, so sophomore year's coming up. We're approaching our fourth semester. Like, John, you still undecided? All right, like, what are we doing here? And they're trying to like push you into just declaring something for declaring sake, right? And so, like, kudos to you for giving yourself that grace to just try things out, test the waters, and see where it is that you align with. Because I think a lot of people they feel like they have to have it figured out. So kudos to you for
Yep.
that. And all right, so fast forward, you started getting, you graduated, got some real world experience, went back, got your master's, got some more real world experience, and then so that moment when you realized like, hey, this 9 to 5 thing isn't for me, was it like a gradual thing, like over the course of a few months, where it just kind of like it just kept building and building and building on top of each other, or was it like a one day I woke up and just like, hey, I hate this? Like, how did that decision come about?
It was a buildup for sure. And actually, I was forced into sort of creating my own lane. So when I left the VA hospital system, I was actually recruited by a nonprofit, went and worked for that nonprofit for a couple of years. And when I was at that nonprofit, I was able to pretty much do like whatever I wanted, my own thing. I was out and about. They gave me a car. I was making partnerships, finding resources. Like I literally was doing my own thing, but working for a nonprofit company.
Hmm.
And I remember, I think I was like 10 minutes late to like a team huddle, and my boss went off on me. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, because I don't ever show up late to team meetings. But then for like someone to get mad at me for the first time, like a first offense, I was kind of like, this is weird. And then that's when it started kind of, I realized like, oh, I can't work for somebody like this. And I cannot be restricted in my schedule. I can't be restricted in the programs I want to provide. And it was a slow, gradual. I ended up getting laid off from that nonprofit, so that's when I took advantage, and that's when I finished my doctorate. And so while I was finishing my doctorate and being laid off, I had to hustle. So that's when I started doing resource partnerships for nonprofits and kind of just being like the plug for everybody in the nonprofit world and side hustling on that. Couldn't get any jobs because of my doctorate. Nobody would hire me or even interview me with that on my resume. So I
Really?
dropped the doctorate off my resume. I got phone calls up the wazoo for interviews. I was like, this kind of fucked up. Got a job. Ended up having to drive a 2 hour commute each way to this job to work for this horrible situation. And so I quit that in 2 months. And that's when I knew that was not the life for me.
So talk to us, right, about, you said you were in school and you went back, you got laid off, you're getting your doctorate, and you started becoming the plug. Um, Around that time, um, what was like? Was there any like feelings of like, all right, maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe I'm not worthy, especially because it's like coming off of getting laid off, right? Was there any like doubt in your mind, like, hey, maybe I can't do this or at all, especially because also saying you're still studying to get your doctorate? Like, what was going through your mind after that, during that time period?
You know what's wild? I had zero doubt. And I think
Really?
that's what makes me so successful as a business owner and as an entrepreneur is you really have to have a lot of confidence. The second that my mind slightly goes into negative, and it goes there, you can ask my other half because every single emotion I have, it goes there, and you have to snap yourself out of that shit so fast. I never had doubt though that I couldn't make it happen. My doubts come in like, damn, I need more revenue this month, or I have an employee I have to fire, or like in that kind of stuff, or I want to grow and I want to get the company bigger. But not once did I ever have a doubt on like, was this the route to go? And I went quick into full time with my own company. I started it, was still side hustling, working other contract jobs. I would say within a year, I went and did full time only nonprofit plug.
Yeah. All right. So, uh, when did the name the nonprofit plug came out? Because it rolls off the tongue really well, and I'm always curious to hear like what's the backstory behind the name.
So when I was side hustling, when I was finishing my doctorate and had gotten laid off, I was doing random odd jobs for other nonprofits, either finding them funding, grant writing, marketing, strategic development, plugging them into different collaborations, introducing them to people. And so people were calling me the plug, like, oh, cool. Like, Sharon, like, you're the plug for this. And I was like, yeah, that's right. I am the plug. And so I was telling my family all about it. And they're like, how are you making money and paying the bills and not really working a job? Like, they were so confused. And I was like, because I'm the plug. And they're like, oh, so you're dealing drugs. I mean, that makes sense. You're in Los Angeles. Like, you got yourself into some weird shit. Like, and I was like, no, I'm not dealing drugs. Although it's Los Angeles, I can get you anything that you could possibly want. Nonprofit plug. And then what, like, right when I said that and explained it, I was like,
It clicked. Yeah.
I'm the nonprofit plug. And that's like, I'm literally known for that, here in Southern California and other states that we're in too. But like really around here, people be like, that's a nonprofit plug.
That's so dope for me. Like, so I have something similar. So, like, for my business. So originally, I got licensed as a real estate agent. That was like the first big
That's
like
right.
entrepreneur thing, right? And in February of 2022, so I'm licensed with Keller Williams. In February of 2022, they were hosting their annual family reunion conference. Now they didn't have one a few years prior to that because of the pandemic, of course. So this is the first big like Keller Williams conference in a couple years. And then also the week before that conference, I was teaching my very first social media class. Now that first class, I had like almost 440 people sign up for it. It was like super
Wow.
big, and a lot of people there. So it looks like I have a lot now, right? But I promise you, this is like not even a third of what I used to have. I had a lot of hair back then, and so
More than that. I
yeah,
feel
I have.
like I
This is
remember.
like a third of what I used to have, maybe even a little less. Yeah, I had a lot of hair, and it was I had gotten Pintura highlights, so it was like little shit strands of brown going through it and blonde. I don't know what I was doing. I look back and I'm just like,
What
yeah,
was I doing?
what was I doing? But anyways, great for marketing though, because I stuck out like a sore thumb. And so like we were always on Zoom calls, and so like everyone started to know me for my hair because my hair would take up half the Zoom box, just my hair alone. And so I taught that class the week before, knowing that I would see all those people at family reunion the week after. And long story short, I come in with my hair in braids because I had to throw them off a little bit because they were expecting the hair. Came in with my hair in two tight cornrows, and then that Sunday there was a networking dinner. I took my braids out early in the morning, washed my hair, and then had my curly fro out, and I had a shirt that says "Stop and Stare, just don't touch the hair."
Oh,
And
you
like
wore that shirt at the
at
blocks.
the end, yep, I did, and that shirt took off. Like, oh my, the amount of people that I didn't know that were stopping me to take photos with me was
Yeah.
insane. I was like, and plus all the people that were seeing me on Zoom for the past few months, and then we're on the class that now got the chance to see me and meet me in person for the first time. So it's like, yeah, I was a walking celebrity. And long story short, Mendez Media was taken. So I'm like, what's the next best thing? Stop and Stare Media. Because for anyone that needs to create content, they need to stop the
You won't
scroll
stop and
and
stare.
stare, right? But then for anyone that knows me from back then, knows it's from the hair pun. It's stop and stare, just don't touch the hair. And then that kind of became its own thing. But yeah,
That's good.
that's
I
why I'm
don't think
cool.
I knew that whole story. That's funny.
Yeah. So that's how it kind of all came together. So I'm always curious as like when people have names, like how did it come about? Because I know for me, like there's a bit of a backstory behind why I chose this name, and honestly, I'm glad that Mendes. Shout out to whoever took Mendes Media. I'm not sure who
Yep.
you are or where you
Great.
are, but like
Great. Thank you.
that's such a plain name. I'm glad it was taken because it allowed me to get creative, and so that's how I came about. But I want to ask you too, like, what was it like getting your first few clients and getting the momentum going? Because you said you were taking a lot of odd jobs and like, a lot of like different projects. I know a lot of times people in the entrepreneurship space they talk about like, oh, you know, you got to get clarity of what's your offer, what's the one thing that you can sell, and then sell that one thing until you make 100,000 or $1 million, whatever, and
Yeah.
like just getting very crystal clear as to what's the one thing. Where you took the approach more so like, I used to play football, and my junior year there was this one position. It was like an outside linebacker safety hybrid where I wasn't as far back as the safety, but I wasn't as in the box as the linebacker. Long story short, they just put me wherever. Like, hey John, we need to go blitz, go blitz. Hey John, we need to go drop back, go drop back. I didn't really have a set position. I was just kind of flying around wherever they put me, and like that worked out really well for me because then I ended up getting starting my last game of my junior year, which was dope. and you kind of took that similar approach with your business. Like you were doing all these different projects instead of
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, no, I'm this and I do this." You're like, "Hey, where you guys need help at, I can help." So what was kind of like getting your business off the ground, getting that momentum, getting the word out, and getting the momentum going?
So I would say, and still to this day, I operate almost like 95%, maybe even maybe even a little bit higher, of complete word of mouth. And I just it just came with a couple first people. I did their full nonprofit formation and incorporation for them, and it was just like boom from there. It was wild. And then so my offer was very clear. I'll do all the state and IRS federal filing for you to start your nonprofit. Like nobody can figure it out. You could learn online. You could pay LegalZoom. They fuck it up because I get a ton of LegalZoom cleanup clients. So it was just like that was my really clear offer and an easy sell because thousands and thousands of people want to start a nonprofit, and I have the perfect solution. I have the smart launch program. I have the way to start a nonprofit for you. Every state in the US, like we got it covered. And so then what started happening is once people had their nonprofit, they're like, okay, now what? And I was like, go serve the community. I don't know, like go fucking serve the community. And they were like, okay, but how? And I was like, oh, like people legitimately like don't know how. Like including a client that started a nonprofit to help teen moms and wanted to get diapers for the mom she was serving and would ask me questions. And I'm not a mom. And she would ask me questions about like getting diapers and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, go on Amazon, go to Walmart. And she was like, oh, and I'm like, I'm like missing something. I know people are not idiots. I'm missing something. They literally, and it was the whole foundational component to starting a business. For profit, nonprofits, the same thing. People have ideas, and then literally it's like brain lock. You don't know what to do from there. There are a lot of visionaries. So I was like, okay, well, so my next product is business development and infrastructure and grant writing and accessing funding and accessing donors and teaching them their pitch and their messaging and how to collect data so that they could say, hey, I serve 100 people. I have transitional housing. I have 10 beds available. Okay, so partner with like the homeless shelters or other nonprofits that don't have beds and they need beds and start putting that together. And like it just blew people away. So I created that as a whole entire infrastructure for the company. I didn't necessarily even want to offer any of that as services. It sort of
Yeah.
just was like, damn, like people just need this. So what's kind of cool about that is I get to keep people as like a very lifelong, like the life cycle is long for a client of mine. They come in for formation, they come in for annual compliance, they come in for accounting, and then they come in for grant writing. And so I'm able to get them on so many different levels and provide them all of that support because I have that experience. I've been a nonprofit founder, I've been a nonprofit executive director, I've run businesses, I've been in managerial positions, so I was able to bring real world experience on top of what I research.
Yeah, that's dope. And so you said within you're starting your first couple gigs, and it only took you about a year or so to get you pretty much up and running full time. This is your thing, I guess. Um, a lot of times when you get into entrepreneurship, sometimes it can be a long, slow journey, and it's like you spend years not making money.
Painful.
Sometimes you just kind of like fly and things hit the, just kick off. What was it like? Because you said you're scaling pretty quickly. What was it like while you were going through all that? Because I said, I mean, for me, I know I'm more of a visionary role. So like when things get going, everything is just like chaos and like it
Mm-hmm.
works out for me because just like I kind of thrive in it, right? My head's all over the place, but like
Yeah.
yeah. So like,
Yeah.
what was it like for you as you were scaling and you started getting momentum and word started spreading and people started referring you to more and more non-for-profit owners, like, and while you were still then adding on all these extra services that you started figuring out that they needed even more help with. So like, what was it like where you were scaling? Were you like a solopreneur on there? Did you have some sort of like person that you were partnering up with and coaching at the time when you were getting it off the ground and scaling it? Like, what was it like making sure that it all stayed structured and organized?
So I definitely heavily rely on project management systems. We use monday.com. So
Okay.
that is like critical. Having like there's no joke when people say have standard operating procedures and manuals and things like that. I'm still like not even that great on that stuff, but it's getting in there because I was so used to operating alone. It's also delegating and adding to your team, even though that cuts into your profits, and that cut into a good 85 to 90% of my profits until it's starting to get to a turning point where now I'm profiting even after paying. I do a lot of contractors. I have some W-2 employees, but a lot of it is through contractors as I build. So then I can also kind of see, do I like, this person or not? Do they provide the right service? I have very, very high expectations on how you treat clients. And I realize that a lot of people don't treat clients like I do, which causes a lot of issues because then people are like, no, I only want to work with you, Dr. Sharon. And I'm like, I can't do it. So that's the hard part of the scaling and the fast scaling, and it's really having to trust other people and give them the opportunity to kind of do the job. But where I'm realizing what I have to do better at is I really have to micromanage at first and then release them, not the other way. I was allowing people to do whatever the fuck they wanted at first, and then I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, now I'm having to come in and clean up stuff. So I'm trying to switch that and micromanage first and then expand, so that way, I guess you don't even have to call it micromanage. It's like investing into the employees to ensure that they know what they're doing, that they've got the right support, that they're, putting into the culture the same thing that you want.
Yeah, pretty much figuring out how to replicate you as much as possible without
Yeah, it is. I'm
replicating
not
you.
gonna lie. I mean, I love me, but like that shit is hard.
I
It is
bet. I bet. You
because
also have
there's
a.
so much in my brain that I'll have some of my employees will be like, Sharon, why didn't you tell us that? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't think to I didn't even think to be like, oh, I should probably tell so and so this.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Also to like when it comes to text messages, like I'll respond in my head and then never actually
Yeah.
respond. Like things are up here and it's like sometimes it doesn't come out the way I want it to, or sometimes it doesn't come out at all because it's like everything's over here moving 1,000 miles per hour. And I had a very similar experience with you, where when it came to these hiring video editors,
Oh,
so I realized
that's a
it, it's funny because like I hire these people from like other countries, and the guy I'm working with now, shout out to Essen, he's actually a 20-year-old college student, in Pakistan. He's actually making more than his professors, which is crazy to think about. Um, and so it's like we've been together. Next month makes a year from the time we're recording, and so it's like, but like the first couple editors, it was a bit. The first editor I hired was dope, and then like started ghosting me, and oh my! And every other week, I don't know where in the Philippines he lived, but there was a typhoon like every other week. One of the times his house like the roof came off or something like that, which is crazy. And then some other editor I had in Bangladesh, um, he pretty much he had a full time job at a startup that was remote, and two other clients that he was servicing. And I'm just like, there's no way you're gonna be able to keep up with a podcast and like editing reels. And it's just
right.
like, yeah, I haven't hired too many people, but I can only imagine like what's the because it took me a while just to figure out my process down for just the editor, and that's like a pretty straightforward task, right? It's
Yeah.
like you edit the videos, that's pretty much it, nothing else. So I can only imagine what it was like for you. Um,
But
I'm
it's
curious.
the same kind of thing though. Like sometimes you just like people talk a good game and then they'll come on like even some people I've let stay on 3 4 months longer than I should have, and I'm like, you sold me the fucking dream and failed miserably.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. My second editor sold me the dream. I had a feeling in my heart. I was like, I know I shouldn't hire him. Not
Damn,
because he's a bad guy, but like, oh my, I had it in my heart because I knew there's no way he was gonna be able to keep up with everything. He's already working full time, so like, unless he's willing to slave himself every week and work 100-hour weeks, he's already doing 40 at his regular job. But I'm not. I don't know how much his other clients were telling him to edit, but I was like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have given him a shot. But we, I try to see the best in people, and so it's like that was the first time I ever really kind of, I wouldn't say it bit me because I only worked with him for a month, and then and then I let him go. So by the time the month was coming up, I was already working on hiring the next guy because I was like, yeah, this is unacceptable. I got to get him out of here. And so we only stayed together for a month, but and I also didn't feel that bad because he has a full time job plus two other
Yeah.
clients. So if he drops me, it's not like he's losing his whole
That's the
income.
biggest thing though, is like I also had to learn to like, I'm a very empathetic person, and you have to, as a CEO and a business owner, you have to let go of that being the lead. You can still love people and be nice to
Hmm.
them, but I am not the most direct person.
Yeah,
I can be direct. There's certain aspects of my life I can be direct in. I definitely like had to pull up my big girl panties and be way more direct with my company.
yeah. You have to be a straight shooter sometime, and it's tough, but
Yeah.
it's if that's the thing that the business needs most, then it's like you let them go and give them grace, and then help them to the I mean, hopefully, if it's amicable, help them with the next opportunity, and if it's not, well,
And if it's not,
get
fuck
them,
it, who cares?
get them, get them out of there. Yeah, pack them up, pack them up. All right, so let me ask you too. So one thing I wanted to ask you that I'm genuinely curious about is, so you are a for-profit business that helps not-for-profits. Now, a lot of times people think that not-for-profit, there's like an idea that a
No.
stereotype that not-for-profits don't have money. So like when you were deciding to like kind of do this for a business, like, well, I mean, what made you want to help nonprofits specifically versus, I mean, because you could have helped regular business owner for profit business with business infrastructure and getting their messaging and their offer and pitching properly. Like you could have just helped regular for profit business. Like what about not for profits? And I know you were in one time. I'm assuming that kind of had a role to play. But what about not for profit made you specifically want to work and help them?
The fact that nonprofits predominantly are there to serve and enhance the community. So I grew up on this concept of tikkun olam. Tikkun olam in Hebrew means to repair the world. And it was
Hmm.
literally ingrained into my blood the day I joined this world. Like I know no other foundational concept to my life besides tikkun olam and mitzvah, which means like doing a good deed. And so I just I love nonprofits because it's a business with a cause. It's still a business model, but there's way more opportunity with nonprofits and way more serving of the community and way more clear mission that the mission is to serve the community. So that's why I didn't even necessarily, it wasn't like a choice for me whether I was like, do I serve nonprofits or for profits? It didn't even occur to me about for profits. Didn't even, not until like probably within the last year or two, because now it's a lot more popular, but didn't even occur to me to do business development for profits. I just knew I wanted to serve nonprofits. Didn't even think about like, should my company be a for profit or nonprofit? I also have a nonprofit arm. I have the Nonprofit Plug Foundation because there's actually a service that we provide that has to be under the nonprofit for nonprofits by being their fiscal sponsor or fiduciary manager.
Hmm.
So just was so much more opportunity, so much more, and knowing I'm literally impacting the community at the same time.
Yeah, focus on impact and income follows, right? There's
Yeah,
a quote I heard somewhere. It's like, uh, I heard it on some random Facebook video years ago, and it just stuck with me. Is that if you focus on passive impact, you never pretty much have to worry about money.
yeah,
A lot of people are focused on passive income. How can I make money without having to work? Well, it's like instead of focusing on that, focus on how can you have passive impact? How can you impact lives without having to work? So that whether you're sleeping, like people are benefiting from the value, the resources, the workshops, the trainings, the coaching, whatever that you provided and put out into this world. Like how can you impact people while you sleep? And if you could do that, then money will always follow because I mean you're impacting people's lives.
yeah, passion and purpose, like 100%. And the other thing that I coach nonprofits on in mindset is that nonprofits are not non-profitable. It's just
Yeah.
not the terms you use in that industry. Nonprofits are very, very lucrative. And I don't mean lucrative like we're making $300,000-400,000 salaries, although I'm pretty sure the CEO of like Goodwill and United Way, they probably make close to 300 or 400K, but that's also their budgets are multi-million budgets. So the percentages make sense. But nonprofits compared to like a for-profit have way more access to opportunity. You have access to donors, you have access to more grants than a for-profit would. You have access to more sponsorships and more like free or discounted services. Like there's just so much more opportunity on top of serving the community. It just was like a no-brainer for me. And to be able to have somebody come to me and say, Sharon, I want to help end homelessness. Here's my idea. And I'm like, awesome. I'll put the legal infrastructure together for you. I'll teach you how to run programming. I'll help you maintain your compliance. And you go and serve 500 people in homelessness for them. Like, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, for me too. Like one of the things that I want to get into. I spent some time thinking about this last year. Right, it's like tying what I'm doing now to a cause. So like for me personally, like food insecurity is a big one because like
Mhm.
I grew up, we
Yeah.
have I had free lunch, right? Um, and if I didn't have free lunch, yeah, I would have been hungry every day at school. And then the second big one is although it never really impacted me personally, it impacted people around me. Mental health is another big one in my life. Um, that so like ideally, and then also like then entrepreneurship for like this in
Hmm.
particular, walk to wealth, like I don't know exactly what this is going to turn into, right? But my stuff for Stop and Stare Media is all AI marketing for business owners, real estate agents, mainly real estate agents, but now it's starting to open up to business owners as well. And that's bringing in money, right? And so that's my whole focus on there. Get paid, right? But
Yeah.
this walk to wealth thing, I always call it I call it a purpose project because like, so you said I forget how you pronounce it, the to repair the world,
Yeah.
um,
Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Alam. And so one of my favorite quotes is very similar. It's a Plato's quote from it comes from Plato's allegory of the cave. It's the duty of the enlightened is to enlighten the unenlightened. And so
Mm,
my own words, right, it's like it's your moral obligation to put everyone on once you learn something, right?
yeah.
And share the light, spread the wealth, right? And so that's kind of what the whole vision with the podcast kind of. And I wanted to document the journey while I was still on the journey instead of waiting for me to become the next entrepreneur business guru on social media and saying, hey, here's how I made 6 7 8 figures and here's how you can do it too. It's like, nope. It's like, hey, I'm starting from ground one. I'm meeting a bunch of dope people along the way. I'm learning a bunch of dope lessons along the way. And ideal world, I want to turn this into something where it's like I'll keep doing the AI marketing consulting, getting paid crazy money doing that, and then have this podcast develop into more and more things. Like right now, I'm mentoring students at UConn. So this semester, I got 3 students that I'm
Cool.
mentoring, um, and normally it's mandatory that they have 2 calls, but all 3 of them this semester have booked their third calls already. So like I'm gonna keep helping them out. And it's crazy because like I'm only a couple years older than them. Right. I
Right.
was literally
Right.
just in their shoes not too long ago. I just turned 23 last 2 months ago. Right.
Wow.
And so and then I have a fourth kid who literally just DM'd me I think a couple days ago from the mentoring program. And so and I think it's already by now they were supposed to already have booked their second call. So I'm sure he's pretty much reaching out to me like on his own like will, out of his own will, not for the thing. So it's something that I know in the future want to turn into something big, like this whole podcast focusing on like young adults. Because that was me. I was in college. I knew the traditional track wasn't for me, but I didn't know what entrepreneurship was. I didn't know what business was. I didn't have financial literacy. Come from grandparents that were born and raised in DR,
Really
and
like buzzwords.
yeah, like what is this stuff? Like my grandparents were born in the sticks in DR. Like they
Yeah.
they literally had to walk to like miles just to go get water and come back. And then they came to the States, of course. And so it's like I didn't know what none of that was, but once I found out that there's this whole other world, and that's kind of like what keeps me going with the podcast. And now, as of right now, we're 3 episodes away from 250 that we published, and we're 1 month away. Today's a month from today exactly makes 3 years
No,
that we've been doing a podcast.
because
Yeah,
you
so
didn't talk about this at the show. So
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
you
So
were doing
this is like the
podcasts
purpose.
before it was like real cool to do podcasts.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. I got it right before it really started blowing up, and I just said I just been sticking with it, and I don't want to really monetize it. At least I'm
Yeah,
not focused on that at all. I just want to see where it goes, and
it's a cool
that's it.
outlet.
Yeah, exactly. And so sorry, a little bit of a tangent. I don't even know how I got into that, but that's the vision that I have for like the podcast and what I want to do. It so um one of these days, once the AI thing blows up and starts going crazy, Then I will have more time and bandwidth to then focus on like really making sure this message gets out to everyone. So I'm definitely going to be giving you a call. And speaking about giving you a call, um, where can we find you? Where can we keep up with you? We have visions, we have ideas, kind of similar to mine or even different. Like if we have something that we feel called to put into this world, to bring into this world, to help others, and don't know how to actually bring it into the world. How can we get in contact with you? How can we connect with you? Where can we find you at?
I love it. So I made it super easy. thenonprofitplug.com, at the nonprofit plug on Instagram,
Mhm.
at the nonprofit plug on LinkedIn, at the nonprofit plug on the YouTube channel. You cannot not find me. It's I am there. Anything the nonprofit plug and my stuff will come up. Also with the last name Elephant, like people can really they can find me whether I want them to or not. But I love it. Like anything business development, nonprofits. How do I leverage for profit and nonprofit? How do I collaborate the two? I want to serve the community, whether it's animal welfare, mental health, homelessness, food injustice, post incarceration, like people incarcerated. Like I even was working on a nonprofit for a girl. She had access to a phone. She's incarcerated and is already working on putting together her nonprofit. Like the opportunities are insane. I had a guy text me in the middle of our podcast. Have you ever heard of a gym being a nonprofit? Absolutely. Like health and wellness. Like there's just so much opportunity. That is why I'm the nonprofit plug.
All right, and so, Dr. Sharon, nonprofit plug. Time for our famous 5 questions. Same 5 questions. I'm excited to hear yours because you've probably spoken to a ton of people from a totally different walks of life. So I'm curious to hear your answers to the five I'm going to ask. So, question number one. Uh, no worry, no curveballs. Just
Okay.
deep questions, right? What is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Ooh, the most impactful lesson I learned in life. I feel like this is probably kind of cliche, but um, you really can't trust everybody. And I love to trust people, and it is just not the way to go. You cannot trust everyone. So my biggest like lesson learned is you really got to deep dive on folks and what they're offering.
Mm.
Anyone, friends, family, business, all of it.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
The most admirable trait a person can have, follow through. I don't really know what you exactly would call that characteristic, but people who follow through on their word or on a project or on an email or a phone call, I fucking love those people. I love them. I love people who follow through and do what they say they're going to do. Those are my people.
If you could change someone's life, or if you had to change someone's life, but only had one book to recommend, which would it be?
Ooh. If it was like nonprofit sector, I would recommend shit, where did it go? I just finished it the other day too. It's like something about like the 6 steps to changing the world, or changing the world in 6 days. I'll send you a link so you can post it in this. That one was really good because it talks about being like nonprofit founders and leaders, and like the business development side. You can't go wrong with Stephen Covey. You can't,
Mm.
those kind of books, anything on leadership. He's not necessarily a book, but um his name is last name's Nightingale. It's either Ed or
Earl
Nightingale.
Nightingale.
Yeah. Oh God, I fucking love
The
that.
secrets of like success and
Yeah.
mindset.
I would
Yep.
say more than a book. Like just
Oh,
put him and his stuff on repeat and
yeah, his
just
audio tracks on YouTube.
just let that flood your brain. I swear, I'll listen to him when I'm like doing my cardio in the morning,
Hmm.
and I will listen to his same YouTube on repeat for maybe like a week straight. And I kid you fucking not, that shit comes true.
What is the legacy that you're working on leaving behind?
The legacy I'm leaving behind is a company that I'm not expecting like my family or my kids or anything take over this company, but my legacy I'm leaving behind is that I was able to create a company, Fortune 500 or whatever, that has the longevity of these businesses that have been around like 40, 50 years. So I'm just trying to leave a legacy of an impactful company that does good for the community.
And for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, What is the very first step you recommend they take?
If you've got an idea to start a business, just fucking do it. Just do it. You don't have to have the perfect offer. You don't have to have the perfect business infrastructure set up. Shit, you don't even have to be filed as a legal entity. Just do it and just help someone, guide someone, create the product and just test it. You don't have to be market ready or 100% good to go. Just get it out there and test it and then make a shift or pivot.
Amen. Yeah, and Dr. Sharon, thank you so much for being here today. I'm glad we were able to catch up after the show. 'Cause I know you've been super busy. I know life has just been crazy. Now we're about to get into holiday season, so I'm glad we were able to do this right before all the mayhem kind of came about. And I'm looking forward to definitely staying in touch with you and watching your journey as you continue to grow and thrive and flourish. And next time I'm in the area, I was in LA, but it was for a conference. It was didn't have time for really anything. But next time I'm in the area, I'm
Let me
definitely
know
gonna
when
be
you're
reaching
back in Los
out.
Angeles.
I'm definitely gonna be reaching out.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks for having me on here today, too. That was fun. Nice, good old